Hi everyone, this is Abel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you a list of really interesting fantasy books, a couple of reading updates, reviews. This is going to be fun. Thank you for being here. But before we start, remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. So if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing, leave a like, share this video. Thank you. As you may have heard, mainly because I cannot shut up about it, I am part of the judging team held by Dr. Philip Chase for this year's SPFBO competition. We call it SPFBOX because it sounds good, it sounds catchy, and this is a great honor, it's a great pleasure. I'm really happy to be part of this specific judging team. The competition is really fun and it is really useful too, because it is targeted to shine a light on self-published fantasy books, and as you may know, it is really useful for those authors and those books to get feedback, constructive feedback and reviews. So there are 300 titles, 300 competitors this year, and each judge or judging team gets around 30 books. And I'm assisting Dr. Chase, who did the heavy lifting and all the job last year by reading 30-something books by himself and deciding his semi-finalists and finalists. This year he has wisely decided and really generously decided to gather a group of people to help him. And so I have been assigned 5 fantasy books, and I will talk specifically of those books that I will review from now until the beginning of autumn, and then we'll have a discussion with Dr. Chase, and he'll be the one deciding the finalists for our group. These are all really interesting books. One of those I have already finished and I will review it in a bit, but let's start with the first book that has been assigned to me. The title of that first book is The Yawning Gap by C.V Vobh. This, judging by the cover and the synopsis, it really looks classic and epic fantasy. We have 3 main perspectives. The first one is a guy called Cor. He is the son of the whiskey distiller that lives in a small place in a fragment, because it looks like in the distant past of this world, the world has been shattered and it's been divided in fragments. Now, I don't know if the name shatters of the term used to describe those shatters, it's about floating islands, which is kind of a pattern, because lately I've been reading more and more about that, or if those are just kingdoms or islands, I don't know. But his story starts when he is forced to, or he finds a way to get out from his fragment and explore the rest of the world with friends and allies in a kind of a quest. Another one is Celeste, which had a really different and really difficult life, because her family was slaughtered by orcs when she was really young, and she has this specific part on the political side of the story, because here in the synopsis she is described as the orator and the new leader for the People's Commonwealth. What is this? What is it? What is it about? I'm really curious about it. And then we have Gilead, which is a Night Lord that it sounds like his original kingdom has been supplanted by the actual Commonwealth that we were discussing about when we mentioned Celeste. So there's a lot of political intrigue too, and of course there is a distant threat, something big and supernatural that will drive and push those 3 perspectives during the story. And I like the fact that in synopsis it ends this way: this menace is thousands of miles away, yet as fragmented as this world is, it's also a small one. Will the hand of vengeance reach them across 1,000 miles? Of course they will. So I'm pretty sure that the story will be interesting. The cover is amazing. This is one of those books that I will probably buy on a paperback editions too. So I can wait to tell you more, and I will for sure give you a review pretty soon. Order of the Shadow Dragon by Stephen McKinnon. This is the first book in a high-octane, pretty action-packed high fantasy series. The protagonist of this book is Adrian Navarro, who is part of a group of really strong and really powerful knights that has a traumatic past. Just by reading the description, you see that growing up he has been forced to face really life-shattering traumas, and when he is a small organization, the pillars of the organization he's part of, those get destroyed too, they get shattered. He is forced to go on a revenge quest. It looks like the book is driven by that. It's trying to find this powerful woman that destroyed his organization. But the twist is that when he's ambushed and captured by a group of people loyal to that powerful woman, he discovers that maybe not everything that he thinks he's right and real is truth. So this quest will change and there will be twists and turns. The setting and the setup is pretty familiar. It's a pretty simple one and probably pretty effective too. And since a shadow dragon has been mentioned in the cover, which is pretty epic too, I think that this will be really compelling, and at least it's really interesting for me. So the description tells that this book is really fast and really action-packed, and if you see on the details on Amazon, it's just around 300 pages long, 336 pages long. So for epic fantasy, this is a pretty short book, so I'm sure I'll be able to consume it pretty fast. So I'm eager to see how it goes on, and I will tell you more when I finish to read it, and I'll give you a review for sure. Child of Venris by Nikki McCormack. This is about our protagonist called Casiel. He's been found when he was really young with his pointed ears cut, and he's been taken in by a stranger, and it looks like he has spent around 12 years of peace in that place with that stranger. But one day a group of knights from the original place when he comes from, which they're considered enemies by the people when he lives in, they come to collect him because they want to bring him back to his original family. So there's a big really important internal struggle, a lot of mysteries to try to understand how this young baby, when he was just 5, ended up in a foreign place with those pointed ears, poor pointed ears cut, and why he has been estranged by his family. And during this travel he discovers a specific connection with another knight, a brotherhood, a specific brotherhood that should be able to unlock supernatural powers that he has to try and learn to master to complete this travel. So yeah, the setup is really interesting because of the cultural differences, because of the mystery, and because of the quest element, which is one of those tropes that never fail to entice me. So yeah, I'm really interested, and I'll give you a review really soon. The Sunset Sovereign, a dragon's memoir by Laura Huie. This is a high fantasy but cozy fantasy too book. One of the 2 cozy fantasy books that have been assigned to me, which should be a sign in and of itself of this surge of this subgenre in the fantasy world, because I've been hearing a lot of about cozy fantasies, and it looks like there are subgenre in the cozy fantasy genre, subgenre to subgenres from the subgenre. It's really complicated. But this one is about a dragon who has been mentoring a whole city, protecting a city and helping the original ragtag of group to grow in a beautiful city, from a small group of survivors to a small village to this thriving city. And he's been protecting this city so well that the city didn't needed an army, didn't need walls or a dam or anything else. So he really kept good care of that city. But something happened, and now the citizens, they want him dead, which sounds really sad. But the plot device that drives this short story is about the fact that an assassin entered the lair of the dragon. Now the dragon is telling this story. So yeah, it sounds really poetic and really interesting, and I'm really curious to see how it works on a thematic level. Why did we decide to have a dragon as a protagonist, to tell the story of this city and of the people living in this city? Yeah, the concept is really fascinating for me. So yeah, I'll give you a review really soon. And the fifth book that I've been assigned is Tea and Empathy by Shanna Swendson. This is a cozy fantasy book, but it is also a romance fantasy and a cottagecore fantasy, which sounds weird but cozy too. So I've been doing a little bit of research because this competition really he's been pushing me out of my comfort zone and going to try and understand the inner workings of the different subgenres. The cottagecore vibes are really prominent and famous on Instagram and TikTok. Is about people showing and sharing their life in cottages with this really welcoming, really warm and really soothing atmospheres and vibes. So when this is translated to books, you can see why this is really easily included in the cozy fantasy subgenre, which is specifically targeted to stories that have low stakes and not a really huge or dramatic conflict with the opposite, maybe in a way, of grim dark stories with a slow pace and this really familiar and enjoyable vibes that should help you relax and breeze through the pages without demanding too much from you on a attention range or attention span. So I had to do a little bit of searching to understand what was going on and what to expect from a book that it is so different from what I usually read. Okay, so the general setting of the story is that we have the protagonist that ends up living and deciding to stay in a cottage, in a house that was previously owned by a healer, and she ends up becoming a resident there. And even if she knows how to heal, she decides to sell tea in that place. I liked the tone and the writing style right at the beginning of the story is really strong, because in the first chapter it tells you that she is wandering around kind of aimlessly because she's so desperate, because something so dark happened, that she's just trying to find a place to lay down and wait to die, basically. And it is weirdly funny that she doesn't want to lie there because their animals will devour her body, doesn't want to lie there and wait for the inevitable hand because don't want for thieves and whatever to ravage her body, and doesn't want to lie there because there is a specific other reason why that's not a good place to lie and end her life. So there's this underlying irony in the way this is described, which is pretty fresh for me, and I don't think that I have ever read something quite like that, which is really fascinating. And then she ends up finding this empty house and a really weird and really fascinating village where it looks like most of the population, it suddenly disappeared. They all left. There's still people in that place, but they did a similar path like her. They ended up staying there because it's like the place needed them, and the house where she lives needs her, and she finds really evident and really apparent clues that house wants her to stay there. And so, and yeah, the writing style and the vibes at the beginning of the book are really strong. And the big turning point, as the description of the books tells you, is that she ends up finding a wounded knight, a man, in her garden when she picks herbs that she used to produce her tea that she sells. And she tries to heal this man, she tries to help him, but she quickly finds that he has completely lost his memory. So the driving force of the story is not just those vibes or of living this quiet country life in a cozy setting, in a beautiful place, trying to stay quiet and enjoy life, but to try and understand what happened to this man. And there is another layer, another mystery, because we know that something happened to her that forced her to flee, and that she may or may not be responsible for the death of another person. So yeah, there are a couple of mysteries piling up, and the book is really short and really quick and really easy to read. There's a bit of a romance there, but it's not a really dramatic and really angsty one. It is really organic, the way they find themselves feelings, being attracted and deciding to try and being a couple, and then there are struggles and there are missteps like every good love stories, but it is really light on the tone. There is nothing really earth-shattering like many romantasy that I've been trying to read and failing because I really don't like most of the most popular romantasy books of today. And I'm sure you know the names, you know the titles, you know those authors. You don't need me to tell you more about this. But I enjoyed the romantic side of this too. On a slightly less positive note, the book is really short, so it's really easy to read, and it's supposed to be highly episodic. This is one of the first book in a series which has been supposed to be all set in that strange city. So probably we'll have other characters, maybe other main protagonists. I don't know if book 2 will continue the story of this one, because when the book finished we still have a lot of mysteries about the place. The backstory of the protagonist and of that man who lost that memories, we get to know the truth. So I don't know if we'll have more about them, but about the place there are still a lot of mysteries. So being that short, it is really enjoyable and you read it in a couple of sittings, but it left me wanting more, because, and this may be due to the fact that we have maybe some kind of non-scripted agreement for this kind of genre and subgenre, that it has to be short and has to be really easygoing. But I felt it lacked a little bit of depth, because when you go and discover the backstory of the protagonist and the backstory of the love interest, you'll see that there is room for a lot of discovery, a lot of discussions, because what they go through is really interesting on a thematic level. There could be a lot of discussion about self-acceptance and the peer pressure and the way the past influence the present and potentially the future, how to liberate themselves from the chains of all the bad things that we have been going through, from the hurt that we have been harboring inside our soul and in our heart. There are a lot of things that are just briefly touched and just in a superficial way, which works for the pacing of that story, that gives you a complete arc in a very short amount of pages. But I just would love to have more about the protagonist, more about the love interest, and especially more for the world building. And I understand, as I told you before, that maybe that's not what this kind of stories are going for, because I have been reading other reviews to see how other readers and reviewers have been connecting with these books, and most of those reviews are absolutely positive, like this one is, because as you know, I don't finish books that I don't enjoy. So I finished it, I can recommend it to you in a way, even when I tell you that there are a few things that don't specifically work for me. And even if the writing style, for example, is really approachable, it's really easy, and it flows most of the time really effectively, there are a few sentences that sound awkward because it looks like the beginning of the sentence is going on a way, and then it contradicts itself at the end of the sentences, and with a weird choice of words for that sentence. So I think there is room there for a little bit of improvement. I don't know if it is a issue with the proofreading of the line editing, or if it is a specific stylistic choice, because at the end of the book, the more you read it, the more they make sense, and when you get to the end of the book, you understand why they decided to phrase those sentences in that way. But while you're reading it, you just tell yourself, wait, this is the wrong word to tell you what you're trying to say. And then you begin to ask yourself, maybe the author is trying to tell me something different here, but I really don't understand it. Okay. It happens a couple of times, and it kind of pulled me off the flow from the story, but not enough to push me to stop reading and to completely stop me, to preventing me to enjoy the story. So as a first experience with cozy fantasy and this specific kind of romantasy and cottagecore vibes, it was a good experience. It was soothing in a way, because like the protagonist and the love interest, I went through the same path with them, beginning in a very low state, in a very dark place, and then lifting up and being and feeling better at the end of the book. So for that, 5 stars. That was really compelling and really effectively done. And but I would have loved it to be more, to have more page count, more depth, more character development, more about world building. And even if I'm not sure if I am allowed to ask more for this genre or subgenre, I really would have loved to have more. So it is an enjoyable read. It should be a perfect palate cleanser between huge tomes, or even lengthier and more dramatic romantasy books if you're into that. and so it's enjoyable, and I absolutely recommend it to you, even if it has those weaknesses there. But it's a good book. It is fairly well written. It has a completed story, so even if this is part of the series, in a way you can try this and be satisfied by the ending of this one. Okay, so yeah, absolutely go and check it out. Reading updates. I'm reading An Emperor's Gamble by J.D.R. Rosal. This is the third book in the Legend of Tell series that I'm enjoying it immensely. This is very well written, characters that I love, a world building that it is endlessly fascinating. This is shaping to be one of my favorite series of all time. And I'm finally reading Curse of the Mistwrights from Johnny Wirtz. This is huge, really concept, a beautiful writing style. Oh, by the way, the last book of this series, it's been published, came out a couple of days ago, and I'm waiting for my copy. And yeah, this is going to be something really huge and really important for me. This is one of those stories that will change my perception of epic fantasy books, I'm sure. And I just finished reading The Solar World by A.G. Riddle. This is the second book in the Long Winter trilogy, I think. Yeah, this is the sequel to the Winter World. I am consuming this on audiobook. I will say it is not as strong as the first book, which was a comfort read, a popcorn book. Was really fast, really easy to read, with a really approachable writing style and interesting science fiction and scientific concepts. This is really different because it's much slower and much and really sad, because we have to deal with the aftermath of what happened in book 1, which ended on a positive note because it looked like we had been finally able to solve the problem, the origin of that steep drop in temperatures on Earth that was causing that kind of freezing. But solving that problem, we unlocked another one. This is set a couple of years later, the first book, and this is a survival book. It's a survival book. The very few people that managed to survive that earth-shattering event that we had in book 1 are trying to rebuild a new civilization, but when the aftermath, the consequences of that victory that we had in book 1, they emerge. Yeah, it looks like life on Earth is going to end even faster than before. So the survival have to grapple with that and have to fight to survive, and there is internal struggle, man against man, in the worst possible way to try and survive. So it is really hard and it's really visceral, but it is also really slow paced in a way that makes it less enjoyable than book 1. On a writing style point of view, it is quite the same. It is a little bit smoother than the first one, because in the first one we had a lot of really big moment and really big chunk of time that have been condensed in the by the perspective, because it's first person in present tense, so it tends to condense all of those huge amounts of times, like weeks and months, in a few sentences. So it was a little bit jarring. It doesn't happen that much here, so I like that. But the ending is really strong. There is a huge twist that if you see the title of the third book, you can kind of understand where it's going. But even if you kind of guess it, you cannot guess specifically what's going on, which is really interesting and really strong. So I can't wait to go and read the third book, and this could be one of those rare series that I managed to end in 1 year. Yeah, amazing. Bravo. Maybe you've been able to break the curse to starting a new series and never finishing those. So yeah, I'm really happy about it. That's all I've got for you today. I'm really excited to be part of this judging team and to have those really interesting 5 books. I'll give you more during the next week. Remember that if you enjoy science fiction and fantasy books, this is the perfect place for you. So if you want to see more, leave a like, share this video, consider subscribing. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.